there's one thing you got to say about political news. It never stops, which leaves us plenty to discuss as we convene a panel of two super sharp local political reporters. They are Kelly Garrity of Politico, who writes the must-read Massachusetts Playbook newsletter. And speaking of must-read, there she is. Welcome, Kelly. And speaking of must-read newsletters, we're also joined by Gin Dumcius, newly appointed editor of the Massterlist daily newsletter, where every Monday morning, alongside the useful news and analysis, you can read a weekly column by yours truly. Gin, Kelly, great to have you here.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for your column.
Okay, my pleasure. So, in the mayoral race, there's good news for Josh Kraft. He's got lots of money to spend and plenty of time to make the case for replacing Michelle Wu. But there's also bad news. Last week's Globe-Suffolk poll shows her doubling his support. And outside of bike lanes and the schools, voters give her high marks on every issue across the board. Gin, I'm going to start with you. You wrote a great book about the 2013 mayoral race back when Marty Walsh won. What did you make of the poll? Did it make you, as some pundits did, start thinking about Kraft withdrawing from the race or not?
Well, I mean, I think that's an incredibly personal decision, and I think he has to be able to make the case that he can make it to November, and I think that's kind of the big question.
Well, what does he have to do differently from what he's been doing? Or what do you think he might try to do? I
mean, some of it is the fundamentals and kind of where people see, you know, even though folks might disagree with Wu on the bike lanes, they're still willing to, at this point, give her another term, another 4 years.
Yeah.
So they overall feel the city is still headed in the right direction, or somewhat the right direction, whereas Kraft is making an argument that it's not. And, you know, those two things are basically running into each other, and it's making his job quite difficult.
What jumped out at you about this poll, Kelly?
Yeah, I think aside from, obviously, the mayor has a significant lead, I think something else that's a little bit tough for Kraft is that his unfavorability was higher than his favorability. Yeah. So it seems like a lot of the mayor's messaging trying to tie him to Trump, talking about Trump donors, funding his PAC, funding his campaign. I think that it really seems to be sticking with people in Boston who even Boston largely just does not support Trump. And so that's one thing that's going to be really hard kind of going from in the next few months is trying to not just convince voters that they shouldn't support the mayor, but that you're someone that, one, they should view favorably, and then two, they should vote for over the mayor. He's
got his work cut out for him, definitely. Go ahead, Gin.
No, I was going to say that the other thing was in the days following that poll, Wu was basically, you know, hammering away at Kraft over, you know, taxes, over the Everett Stadium. Kraft is underwater in this poll, and she kept dropping depth charges on these topics.
Well, she's been very aggressive since day one. They immediately came out of the box trying to tie him to Trump, even though he is adamant that he's never voted for him, doesn't like him. And when they asked respondents to this poll what the most important issue is to you, after housing and the schools and economy, which were tied, the only other thing in double digits was fighting back against Trump. So whether it's the mayoral race or the gubernatorial race next year, it just seems to me Republicans, or in Kraft's case, he's a Democrat, but challengers with any kind of Trump connection are poisoned by the backlash against Trump. Fair?
I mean, particularly in Boston.
Yeah.
And I will say, I mean, while Kraft has been consistent about saying he's not a Trump supporter, he's criticized Donald Trump. The people who are donating to the Kraft Super PAC, which is separate from the Kraft campaign, they do have ties to Trump. There was one person who almost became Trump Treasury Secretary. So there is a Trump connection, and that's what the Wu folks are keep hammering away on.
What's the guy got to do? Burn a Trump doll in effigy or something to make his case?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's too late for this now, but I think something at the outset of the campaign, if you had looked elsewhere for funds, obviously kind of that was some of the allure of having Kraft as a candidate, that he would have a lot of access to money, and a lot of that was going to be from connections to his father, Robert Kraft, who obviously has a lot of friends who are friendly with Trump.
Right, right.
So I think that was kind of something that was going to be a challenge from the outset for him. But
Kelly, maybe you can start first here. Can you explain why Governor Healey thought this was a good time to hand out millions of dollars in raises to executive branch managers and her own cabinet members for the second time in 6 months?
yeah, so the Globe had a good story on this the other day, and obviously it became a bigger story because of some of the places the state is looking to sort of slim down the budget. But the response from the governor's office, I believe, was that these were raises that would put them in line with union members, and that it was, the timing of it was too late, I think it was, for them to stop these raises, these 2% raises from being implemented. The governor's office, the executive office, did pause raises that were supposed to go into effect in January. So I think those won't be going into effect. But it sounded like the governor's office was saying it was kind of, they couldn't.
Their hands were tied.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that might account for the executive branch managers, but the cabinet secretaries are not tied to any union raises. Right. What's that all about?
That's a good question. I mean, it's also kind of, you're looking at cabinet members of who's going to be sticking around. Election season's right around the corner, and typically you see that shuffling of people potentially thinking about leaving. I will say the overall optics of this are not great, particularly when you're watching this bar advocate crisis unfold. Yeah. The folks are being released by courts because there just aren't. There's a work stoppage with
There's no public defenders there
who want to raise. So
yeah.
I think when you put those side by side, it's not a great look.
Wow. Well, drunk driving is never a great look, and just recently we had an unfortunate episode in which a state rep, John Lawn of Watertown, was arrested for driving under the influence, crashed into another car up there on Beacon Hill. He has accepted responsibility and apologized. He's losing his license and so on. But it does raise the issue of the drinking culture on Beacon Hill. Now, I know you two are extremely sober reporters, and the truth is, with the deadlines you deal with, you can't afford to be drinking too much. But how pervasive is this? Kelly, what do you see and hear about it? When I was up at the State House, more than I am these days, it was everywhere. The place was saturated with it.
Yeah, I think, as you were talking about earlier, the Shira at the Globe had a great column on this.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's obviously come a long way from the early 2000s, the drinking culture at the State House. I mean, I think it's still common to see people stopping at the bars after work that are kind of near the State House. It's sort of a way to network with people, I think, kind of, especially now that the pandemic is pretty much kind of in the rear view. You're seeing more and more of it. But yeah, I think even if it has changed, obviously there's still incidents. I
mean, what are the odds, Gin, that we'll have another late-night budget session where the reps are drunk on the floor and chanting "Toga, toga, toga"? Remember that?
I do, although I feel like in more recent memory, it's more cigar smoke that I can smell wafting from the Speaker's office after they're done. But it's I mean, if you walk on Beacon Hill, on your way home, and you walk by all the bars, you see fundraisers happening, lobbyists hanging out with lawmakers, aides. So it's definitely part of the culture. I think something that the Globe Shira Schoenberg also touched on was that the State House can be also a microcosm of society, and so it's very much as in any place there can be alcoholism, people struggling with alcoholism. The State House is similar in that.
Yeah, right. No, there's no giant wall around the State House to wall it off from the rest of society. All right, well, after that, good conversation. I think I need a cold one after that, although it's a little early for that on a Sunday morning. Kelly, Gin, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great to have you here, and great to have you joining us right now.